Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Edmonton Oilers will not, and I repeat, will not make the playoffs. We're going to explain that and much more on the Hockey Podcast. Happy snow day, cold day, wherever you are, as Canada is in a deep freeze. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. My name is Kevin Olenek. You can follow us on Twitter at podcast underscore hockey. Like us on Facebook, the Hockey Podcast. Also, you can follow us on Instagram as well at podcast underscore hockey. This was promising to be one of the, despite the cold all over Canada, this promises to be one of the spicier hockey podcasts that we have had in a long time. There is a preparation for debate. Heidi, are you prepared to debate and argue?
Yes, I am prepared to debate. Sure.
Good.
I have coffee in my hand. I've had breakfast. I think I'll be okay.
All right. Sean, are you prepared to debate?
Always.
Good. All right. Good. And are you prepared to debate?
I feel like I'm not nearly as riled up as maybe the other people on the pod, but I'm definitely here to be entertained and maybe join in.
All right. Devin, are you here are you ready to argue?
Bring it.
Bring it. Okay. Yes. And it's cold, snowy, crappy weather today as we are recording, which is just before the Vancouver Canucks play the Minnesota Wild. I wanted to call them the Vikings, but they're not the Vikings, so the Wild. But we'll talk about the Canucks in a little bit. But yes, folks, I want to start by talking about the Edmonton Oilers and this fine organization, or as we have liked to call them, the Edmonton McDrysidles. Last night, during Saturday night, it is 3-3. It is late in the second period. And it's a pretty intense game, going back and forth. And Heidi's favorite son, Matthew Tkachuk, is doing Matthew Tkachuk type of things. He is riling up a guy that is easily riled up, named Zach Kassian. And we get to the point late in this the second period where Tkachuk lays a big hit on Zach Kassian, and Kassian responds by throwing 17 punches and trying to drag him away like he's Frank Castle from The Punisher into a fight. It gets him 4 minutes of a penalty, a 10 minutes misconduct, and the Flames get the power play and score to win the game. Now, I want you to listen to this compilation between Zach Kassian and Matthew Tkachuk. And I think we'll talk about this, but this comment from Zach Kassian, ladies and gentlemen, is why the Edmonton Oilers are not a playoff team. Let's have a listen here.
In the game, we don't fight as much. Yeah, not much going on. But when big guys hit big guys, does the code still exist?
Oops. Well, keep trying that.
100%. If you're gonna hit like that, you have to answer the bell every once in a while. Like, it's especially 1, 2, 3 in the game. He got me in the third. He followed me in the corner, right? Like, he's clearly trying to target me, which I like. Like, I'm standing here. I love that stuff. I wish we could play him in a day and a half in like a playoff series, right? It was fun for me. We lost the game. It sucks, but all in all, he's just a young punk that has to figure that aspect out in the game. It's Zach, he's a pretty good player, but he's a pussy, to be honest, straight up. That's the definition of it. He wouldn't fight me 2 years ago. Said I was a fourth liner, now I have 13 goals. What's the excuse now? You know what I mean? It is what it is.
How did it feel to sort of play that physical style and continue to go at a guy like Zach Kassian and see his reaction, but one that you just were persistent with?
Yeah, I mean, well, if he doesn't want to get hit, then stay off the tracks. He's caught him 3 times there, so I think he'd learn after the first one. But if he wants to react like that, we'll take the power play, we'll take the game winner, and we'll move on in first place.
How important is
that? Pretty much, in essence, is, to me, the difference between the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames. Zach Kassian is more worried about having a fight and not worried about losing the game. It doesn't seem to be a big deal to Zach Kassian that you actually lost the game. He's more worried about having a fight and calling somebody a pussy. Matthew Tkachuk has a purpose to what he's doing, and the Flames are right now, as of this recording, are sitting in first place. And yes, the first round matchup would be against the wild card Edmonton Oilers. But I'm telling you right now, the Edmonton Oilers are not making the playoffs. I'm sorry, folks. I don't believe that they... Anyway, I'll finish my rant. I'll get to Edmonton media next in a moment, but I want to... I'll stop. I'll let Devin... I'll let you guys talk about what you saw last night, what your thoughts on the comments were. I know Heidi's favorite son is Matthew Tkachuk, so maybe we'll get Heidi to start, and then people can follow after that.
Yeah, so I don't even know where you want me to start with this. Like, obviously, like, was watching the game last night, saw the hit, saw the reaction from Kassian, thought that I was actually fine with the fact that Matthew Tkachuk tried to kind of not retaliate in that situation. It actually, to me, that seemed like something that actually was more of something that he would do now. It's more he doesn't have to necessarily do that. He can just, just skate away and make Kassian look like an idiot and not take the penalty, because I full feel that, like, even if Tkachuk tried to even push Kassian away, like, not necessarily throw a punch, like, they would have just automatically called it a fighting penalty, and then he would have had a penalty too. Honestly, the biggest shock for me came out of that, seeing that interview with Kassian after. I can't believe that Kassian, like, actually full out just called him a pussy. Like, that's just something, like, you just don't do. Like, you're a professional hockey player. Like, you don't say stuff like that. I have a lot to say about this. I think I want to kind of hear what everybody else has to kind of say about this, only just because I know I have only a tiny bit of bias about Matthew Tkachuk. So, but I will say this, is that that I feel like Kassian versus Tkachuk is going to be a much bigger thing than Doughty versus Tkachuk ever was.
Okay, well, so maybe let's break it down this way. Let's start with the play on the ice, and then we'll break to the comments after. Is that a fair way to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the ice first.
Yeah. The play on the ice, like, that was the third time that Tkachuk went after Doughty. Third time he took, like, significant runs at him. And
do you mean
looking back, the second hit that was dirty. Like, he hit Kassian in a vulnerable position in the head. And had Kassian been injured, Tkachuk would have been suspended for it. And I think that was bit of the boil over on from Kassian and how he reacted to that third run that Tkachuk took on him, which was a clean hit. That one was clean. The second one was not, though. And everything that Kassian is getting from that, including the hearing with the Department of Player Safety, is he deserves. But when you're gonna go out of your way and take runs at a player, and you should know that if you took a run and it's whether missed, poorly timed or whatever, and it comes out dirty, you're gonna have to answer the bell. And I think that Tkachuk needed to at least not skate away and not get ragdolled like that, because that was dangerous, and that's all on Kassian. But there could have been a way for Tkachuk to get to protect himself a little bit more instead of just getting ragdolled the way he did.
I do agree with that. The first. Sorry, 1 second. Your first comment about the hit, the second hit that he did was a little bit borderline. I would agree with that. it's hard because if he was going to answer the bell, he should have answered the bell then. He shouldn't have been if it was a dirty hit, then Kassian should have stood up for himself that time, not the second time, because the second time it's kind of over and done with. The third time, his third hit that he laid on him where Kassian ragdolled him. As far as him standing up for himself, like, he shouldn't have to do that on a clean hit. He is making runs at Kassian. He is targeting a player. Of course he is, because he wants the power play, and that's how you win games, is getting the man advantage now. It's not getting into a fight and then all of a sudden, one of our best players and Zach Kassian are in the box. I understand where Sean's coming from, but the way that it is now is different than it was five years ago. And I feel like Kassian, he's a bit of a dinosaur, and he is a goon. And it's not where the game is going. And I think Tkachuk I don't think he did anything wrong other than the second hit, which was a bit borderline.
Chris?
Yeah, granted, I didn't see the full game, but I fully saw the highlights of what happened. And my take on it is that, like, Tkachuk, this is, like, clearly part of his game where he is trying to draw penalties and be somewhat controversial in the sense of, like, making those hits, getting under people's skin. Like, to me, I see a lot of similarity as far as just, like, the shit disturberness of his game is similar to what Matt Cook did and what Matt Cook used to do to other players. Like, just drives you crazy and you want to kill the guy sort of mentality. But I do agree that Kassian definitely lost his cool. He went full caveman. And obviously is going to fully deserve the hearing that he has with the NHL today or whenever that meeting happens. But, I would say that Tkachuk probably, like Devin was mentioning, should have probably, if he was going to do any stand up for himself, it should have been after that dirty hit, not the clean hit. So I'm okay with Tkachuk trying to skate away after the clean hit because he doesn't think, that he should really have to fight after a clean hit. But after the dirty hit, I definitely fully hear that argument.
But the thing from my perspective with Kassian that if I'm an Oiler fan that would bug me is it's 3-3 late in the second period. And the time for him to swing his fist was not at that point in time. Really, if you're the Oilers, you had a chance to win the game. You were winning at one point. You had a 2-1 lead. You had Connor McDavid do a Connor McDavid type of goal that everyone was amazed about. Doing that. But you had a chance to win the game. And that game, it's good for the Canucks and really good for the Flames that this didn't turn out to be a 3-point game because and that's where I think Kassian cost the team. Like, that wasn't the time, it wasn't even in this game that he needed to challenge Tkachuk to a fight. He could have waited to another point in time to do that. It's just, I think my frustration with Kassian's play on the ice was Kassian not being smart about when he's making when he's going to go after him. And even Dave Tippett was like, take a number. You didn't need to go after him at that particular point in time. And quite frankly, I don't know if you noticed, but Connor McDavid seemed quite frustrated on the ice with what Zach Kassian was doing because he knew the position that Kassian put the team in. And I think one of the reasons that Matthew Tkachuk does these things to Zach Kassian specifically is because Zach Kassian seems to be a player, and maybe Sean and Chris know this a little bit better than others following the Canucks, it's been a player with a history of a little bit of an overreaction. And he's a guy that Tkachuk knows he can easily get under the skin with and is a target for Tkachuk every time the Flames play the Oilers because he's living rent-free in Cassian's head.
I don't think he is, though. It's not like it's Doughty. He's not rent-free in Cassian's head. Well, at least he wasn't. I don't think he wasn't. He wasn't until maybe the last night. But the way and the reason he's in his head now is because he took a dirty run at him.
What about last year when we had last November when the November 2018, not last November 2019, let me be specific. November 2018, in the Saddle Dome, Tkachuk and Kassian tried to go after Tkachuk, and Tkachuk, you could argue whatever Tkachuk did there, but Kassian was trying to go after him and challenge him to a fight, and we'll get to the comments. He's been challenging Tkachuk for a fight for years, and Tkachuk has declined him. So it's hard for me to sit here and tell me that Tkachuk is not in some way in Cassian's head in some way in time.
Yeah, but maybe a little bit, but not rent-free like Doughty, in my opinion. It's a different level.
I think, too, that, like, this has been the Kassian versus Tkachuk thing that just hasn't... I think the whole the thing with Doughty, too, is that, like, that was just perpetuated by the media and stuff, too. Like, maybe, like, that whole thing, like, they did replay it a couple, like, I feel like more than once last night, that incident from 2018. I personally have known that, but so I think he has like Tkachuk has been sort of on Kassian's mind for a while. I think maybe it hasn't been talked about as much as it now will.
I feel like Doughty complained to the media a lot about it, and that's kind of what allowed that controversy to live on the way it did. Whereas I feel like what Sean was just saying, like, this is only just getting started. Like, Kassian might be more vocal about it now, but he hadn't, like, talked to the media about his disdain for Tkachuk until last night.
I don't think. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, and had he been, like, rent-free, like, in his head, like Tkachuk is in Doughty's, like, there would have been talk about this before the game. And Kassian probably would have been a little more in Tkachuk's face after that first hit. So I think what really set this off was that second hit.
Devin?
Was it the second hit though? I think I'm agreeing with Kevin with there's a little bit of history, not enough to really go off of to make it a story, because the Battle of Alberta, where the teams sit right now, is more of a story than just Tkachuk and Kassian, because I mean, where's LA right now? They're at the bottom of the league. That's why they got to create. Media has to create some sort of a baseline, a story to go off of. I think that this has been brewing for a while, and Tkachuk, he knows that, Kassian can be a snap show. And so if he pokes the bear long enough, the bear's going to swipe back. And he did multiple times. 17 punches, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really count, but it was very similar to what Brad Marchand did to Daniel Sedin in 2011. It was a pretty similar, like, except that, it wasn't the ragdoll that Marchand did too, but it was a number of punches. We'll say 17.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's Tkachuk is going to do this over and over and over again, and Kassian's just going to have to take it, because I mean, he put his team down, for 4 minutes, and he was off the ice for 10 minutes. For 10-minute misconduct. And he can't be doing that, with Kevin's point earlier, he can't be doing that in a 3-3 game. That was selfish. It was stupid. And even though Tkachuk, quote unquote, may have deserved it, that's not the time to do it. Right at the end of the second period, imagine if Calgary scored on that power play going into, or at the end of the second period, and they'd be up 4-3 going into the third. That's a dagger. Those goals at the end of a period are daggers, and it doesn't even matter if it's at the end of the period or not. They're still in the game. You still have a chance to win the game. So what he did was completely stupid. Completely stupid.
And it's really tough to kill off those 4-minute penalties that come across as selfish, as opposed to, like, if this was. Let's throw a different scenario. If Matthew Tkachuk knocked out Connor McDavid in some way, shape, or form, and Zach Kassian jumped in to protect Matthew Tkachuk and he got a 4-minute penalty, that's probably for the team a lot easier to kill. But when it's a selfish penalty, like what Zach Kassian did, even though it's broken up between the second and the third period, it's harder to kill those things off. Because it tends to be when it's a bad penalty, power plays seem to happen. And it turned out to be 39 seconds into the third period that Lindholm scored his 20th goal of the year, so and won the game. Now let's get to the comments after. Which I think is also, like, I'll start here. I think that Zach Kassian's comments, not only the play on the ice, but I think his comments on the ice, off the ice, were selfish and completely unprofessional. Yes, he's using the word pussy, but even the comment about, to me, the if I'm an Oiler fan, this is where I get a little bit bigger of a concern. Like, he seems to be more interested in the fight, and he's not he doesn't sound super upset that they lost the game. Like, he seemed to be more interested in having a fight with Matthew Tkachuk than actually winning the game. And going into free agency and going down the trade deadline, is this a guy that you want on your team?
He can score 13 goals the way he has this season. You have to look at it.
I mean, anybody playing with Connor McDavid can score 13.
Well, I'll be honest. I don't know. Like, I've read that, but I have to tell you, if I played with Connor McDavid, I'm not even confident I can score one. I'm not confident in my ability. So I do think Zach Kassian is better at playing with Connor McDavid than I am. I'll give him that.
Here's my take. Kassian with McDavid is basically the Anson Carter with the Sedin treatment.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was about to say that too. Like, they said that about the Sedins for years, but it took them till they found Anson Carter for one season, and then Alex Burrows a few seasons later, when they were able to go to the next level, and someone who could actually read off of them. And I think that's something that Kassian does deserve some credit for, is he does read off McDavid and Draisaitl better than others.
So with saying that, though, you're saying that McDavid and, like, Kassian is making McDavid a better player, which doesn't make sense.
I'm not saying that.
I'm just saying he's the opposite of that, actually.
He's reading off of McDavid better than other players have. That's all I'm saying.
Or is it more okay? Well, I don't know if I agree with that. I do agree that he has some sort of, talent, but I don't think. I think that's more showing the depth of the Oilers and how much depth they have past those two top players. If they had Mangiapane, oh my goodness, that kid last night, I loved watching him with the puck. If they had someone like that, I feel like it would be a different story.
I wouldn't put Mangiapane in the level of what the Oilers need. I would say he's slightly better than what they have in their second and third lines. But he did play well last night.
I think, to me, we're not getting to the comments, but the problem isn't, okay, sure, I mean, Kassian can play with McDavid and Draisaitl, but at the end of the day, watching this game, is Zach Kassian a guy that can get you into the playoffs?
He's not. No, he's not a game-changing player. He's a good depth player.
He's a player that you need in the playoffs.
He's like a Pat Maroon.
I take Maroon over Kassian right now.
Yeah. It's just, but that's what it is. He's a good depth player who can play up the lineup with when needed.
Okay, so if
there's nothing wrong with that, and every team needs them.
So sorry, okay.
But he's
go ahead, Chris.
He's just consistently, but he's on the top line. He's on the top two lines. He's not a depth player. Yeah, he can go up and down your lineup, but I mean, him up there consistently, he's not what they need up there. I mean, you do need some balance within your lines of, a heavy-nosed player who has a little bit of skill. But the thing is that he's always up there on the top line. And he's a player that you need in the playoffs to help grind away and to help, I guess if you're going for like kind of an old school term, police the game a little bit better, then yeah, sure. But as far as making the playoffs, I don't think he helps you.
Are you bothered? If you were on his team, would you be bothered by his comments last night?
I know 100%. I would be.
It's unprofessional. I think that's kind of across the board, no matter what team you play for.
Yeah, it's not the best thing to say, but as a fan, I say it's freaking entertaining. Who is not looking forward to January 29th when the Flames and Oilers play again?
It's back to back, by the way. It's Wednesday, January 29th, and Saturday, February 1st.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they play again on April the 4th.
Yeah, no, it's that this is like, as much as we're basically like shitting on Zach Kassian for how he acted. This is fantastic. This is great theater. This is what makes why we love heated rivalries is and all that, and we're getting that now back with the Battle of Alberta. Like this is what the Battle of Alberta has needed for years.
I agree.
We've got both teams are in the playoff hunt. You've got personal vendettas and rivalries. Like, you got layers now. This is great.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Absolutely. I from a fan point of view, this is entertaining. But if you're an Oilers fan, as much as that you're entertained, the other side, or you're in the Oilers organization, as much as this may be entertaining for a fan, has to be a bit disconcerting that you have a player making these comments in a pretty heated game.
Oh yeah, no. As I said, if I was his teammate, I'd be telling him, look, that's not. I would have pulled him aside and told him that what he said was offside, and that we should be focusing on the game and before trying to get after the rats on the other team. But it's also like hockey's an emotional game too. So, and such a fast-paced game, and when emotions are in high, that's you get these situations.
Yeah, if I was Cassian's teammate, I would have been more like, leave that stuff for like the warm-ups or in between the whistles, not to the media post-game.
Yeah,
that stuff should be said on ice, not in the media, for sure.
That wasn't the only comment. Those weren't the only two comments that were made last night. Rasmus Andersson, who, can I say this? This is maybe a little bit of a hot take, which is in Heidi's wheelhouse. Rasmus Andersson is slowly becoming the Kevin Bieksa of the Calgary Flames.
Well, was it too when you guys were in town? When everyone was in town in Calgary, when you said underrated rat, that's who I said. Rasmus Andersson, he's got some feistiness to him.
Yes, and he's been very entertaining this week, of course, with Minnesota with his boom. But even last night, he mentioned that he talked a little bit about Kassian, but he also called out Leon Draisaitl and saying that he didn't notice Draisaitl last night. So let me throw something here to the Flame, to Devin and Heidi, maybe first, and Chris and Sean may relate. I feel like Jeff Ward has almost let out the personality of the Calgary Flames since he's come on. It's like, when Bill Peters was coaching here, not to bring up him, but I don't remember Rasmus Andersson being as vocal as he is right now. I feel like Jeff Ward has brought something different out, and it's sort of reminding me of the 2011 Bruins a little bit. I'm not saying the Flames are winning the Stanley Cup. That's not what I'm saying. But there's a certain villainous heel turn that the Flames have taken, and it's allowed Rasmus Andersson to be a little bit more free with his mouth.
I know you're asking the Flames people first, but I just want to say that comparison made me shudder.
I mean, Marchand and Tkachuk, one and the same.
Oh, did we lose everybody?
No, I'm here.
Okay. Anyways, to answer your question there, Kevin. Like, Rasmus Andersson was already kind of like, you could see glimpses of that while Bill Peters was still in town, but I believe you're right. Like, I've really been seeing those that like a little bit more grittiness and the kind of like pesky attitude from him since Jeff Ward came in. Like that first practice you heard about with them playing music and all that stuff at practice, like that was Rasmus Andersson that was making those playlists. He's usually the one doing that in the room that we never heard so much about, and he's bringing it out. And I think that all kind of, I think now too, like even these 2 games, I think it's been now since he's signed that contract too. It's just really kind of brought it out, and I'm loving it. And I know I said this for sure last night. Like I'm full on planning on the next jersey is going to be a Rasmus Andersson jersey, and because I've been just loving the way he plays and all that stuff. So yeah, for sure. And I can see a little bit of like, I'm seeing a little bit of flashes of personality from other players too, just like maybe subtly. I don't know if Jeff Ward has anything to do with the fact that Lucic and Ronaldo dyed their hair blonde for some strange reason.
14 and playing in the midget provincial championships again.
Yeah, like so. I don't know. I can definitely see flashes from other players too.
Yeah, I think Jeff Ward, with him being a player's coach, has made them feel more comfortable to be themselves and not just be, robots and, go do this without, go do this on the ice without having any explanation. I think that Rasmus Andersson, I think he's really coming into his own. He's feeling more comfortable with the team, and I think that's really, it probably slowly, with being a rookie, you can be a little shy, right? And once he gets more comfortable, then you can definitely see that he has been more comfortable to be himself and to be a bit of more of a pest. And I don't know if that's what he was back in the OHL with Barry, back in his junior days, but I'm happy to see it. And you can tell that the guys love Andersson for being who he is. And maybe within having a Matthew Tkachuk around to kind of, help him, come out of his shell a little bit and be able to actually, come out with some good chirps. And you can tell that every time that the camera comes and pans on him, you can, in between plays, he's totally talking to the other team. I loved it. I saw him and Nugent Hopkins, talking back and forth a couple of times last night. And so I think it's been really refreshing to see. And I think eventually he'll have an assistant captain on his jersey.
I was just thinking that. I was wondering if we are going to see an A on Rasmus Andersson at some point in time. The guy does have that type of leadership ability here.
Yeah, I could fully agree with that too.
Yeah.
Hard to know what it is in the locker room, but I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years if he has it.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with that. You can kind of just see it in just how he carries himself, especially since the coaching changed, that it just almost feels like a natural progression at this point.
Yeah. And he signed the 6-year, $27 million contract. He got the extension after the Dad's trip. Eric, I know that we don't like Eric Francis, but he wrote an interesting article about the contract. I think that was a great value. I think a great extension and a valued signing for the Flames going forward. I almost like a thank you very much, Rasmus, for helping us out. Am I offside there? Or?
No, I agree with that.
Yeah. I forgot to get to Oilers media. We'll get to that quickly in a second here. But before I do that, I want to talk about the goaltending here because we've seen a pretty good run here from Cam Talbot. Brent Cron during the New Year's weekend, or it was the Rangers game. Brent Cron, who does not look 37 years old, I'll just say it that way, suggested that Cam Talbot would take over for David Rittich as the number one goaltender for the Flames. Are we prepared to say that there's at least a goalie controversy in Calgary? Or is this, we're just going to play this by ear depending on who is playing well?
So like I remember hearing him making that comment, and at that time I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. That's a pretty hot take. But now just kind of been watching Talbot. I don't know if necessarily I see him being a true number one. I think it's going to still stick to being that kind of from what I kind of remember from conversation at the beginning of the season of having it being more of like 1A, 1B, like if one goalie's going to be playing very well and they're going to run for a while and then maybe they'll fall off a little bit. So the other player or the other goalie will take over. And there's like, I don't think there's going to be a definitive number one at the end. I think Talbot had kind of a rough start. And it's really nice to kind of see him actually finally make sort of, for lack of a better term, making up for that now. And it'll be great. But I don't think I'd ever call it a controversy at all. I think it's great that we have two great goaltenders.
As a Canucks fan who went through both... Sorry.
No, go for it. You're good.
As a Canucks fan who went through the Luongo-Schneider era, just ride it out as long as it'll go when things are good, because you do not want it to turn into this debacle of who's the number one, who's number two, all that jazz. Just let the good times roll is my advice.
Yeah, I don't think it's controversy. It's a 1A, 1B, like Heidi was saying. It's you go with the hot hand, and you know that Rittich is a very competitive person, and you know that he's just waiting for the chance to get back in the net and to show that, I'm the number one guy. And I think that's a healthy, good combination to have. Rittich, he's still a great goalie. And Talbot, I mean, he had a crap year last year, but the year before that, what did he play? 60 plus games, and he got the Oilers into the playoffs. So it's not the fact that Talbot wasn't a good goalie. It's just, I think it has to do with confidence. I think it had to do with getting a chance just to get in his own and making one thing that I don't think people really talk about is going to a new city. It takes a while to get kind of into the rhythm. Your personal life. He just had twins. Last year, and so there's a lot of changes that happen there. So I'm happy to see that Talbot has found a good groove. But I'm interested to see how Rittich can push back and how he does it as a next start.
And
the other thing, though, is today's the way teams use goalies and the successful teams specifically use goalies. It's changed a lot than what it has been in 5-10 years ago. You've got one of the best examples you can throw out there is Boston with Tuukka Rask and Jaroslav Halak playing fifth. Like they basically split the games, and then you go in with Rask for the playoffs. I really do think that going with a 1A, 1B situation is actually healthier and smarter for franchise success. And the fact that Talbot's has figured out not only the off-ice stuff that Devin talked about, but the on-ice stuff. You're playing behind a new team, a new system, probably some new terminology with communication. It takes time to get used to that, and I think he's finally gotten there, and that's great for the Flames. And having two good goalies is going to be really good for them.
Yep, yeah, and he's brought a certain calmness to the Flames that I don't think we'll talk about Mike. I have a quick question about Mike Smith here. I forgot to get to as well, but he's brought a calmness that I think Mike Smith didn't bring, and he doesn't go out of it. He doesn't necessarily play the puck, but I don't know. He seems calmer in the net. He seems to have a quieter presence. He's not out. He makes big saves, but they're not he's not trying to make the spectacular save. It makes sense. I think he's just trying to make the save. If that makes any sense. He's not trying to be flashy, and I don't know. I think it's brought in a bit more of a calmness to the Flame team. I think overall.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that for sure.
Yeah. Two more quick things here. Were you disappointed that Mike Smith did not play against the Flames?
Yes, I think the words I used was absolute bullshit. Pretty sure that's what I typed in the podcast chat.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I was really hoping to see him. I believe Dave Tippett said that since there was travel involved in the past couple of days for him, that it was that made the decision pretty much. But I agree, it was bullshit.
Sean and Chris, did you want to see Mike Smith versus his former team?
Well, we saw it last game. Flames got to score on both goalies last game.
Do you think Mike Smith plays a game in the Saddledome as an Edmonton Oiler?
If he doesn't, it definitely adds to the whole he's being a chicken sort of aspect about all this.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's the next game's a little far out, and Kassian has kind of taken the reins from for the starting goaltender position, like the 1A position for the Oilers. So I wouldn't be surprised either way. I know it's just surprising me not taking a stance here, but I don't know. I can't make up my mind on this.
I'm going to jump on this opportunity and say that Sean's pulling a Chris for once.
Yeah. I
was just thinking that too.
Devin, Heidi?
I think...
Yeah.
Everybody's
kind of already said, I would say.
I don't think we will. I don't think Mike Smith will play a game in Calgary. I think I think part of him knows he's going to be booed unmercilessly. And I don't think he's good. I think he'll play a game against he'll start in Edmonton, but he will not start in Calgary. That's my prediction. We'll save Oilers media for another time. I'll tweet about Oilers media, but I just find they are becoming more obnoxious. This is what I'll say. They are becoming more obnoxious in Toronto. And in that, my God, Connor McDavid was checked. Can we just, there's a check. Can we call a penalty? Connor McDavid was checked. Why isn't there a penalty? Oh my gosh, stop. Just cover your team. Good grief. Is it a dress code in some of there that you have to actually wear an Oilers jersey to the office? Good grief. My gosh.
Are you sure you don't want to talk about it, Kevin? I feel like you want to talk about it.
Unleash the beast, Kev.
I'm sorry. I just think that they have become one of the most obnoxious, unprofessional media groups that are covering the team. Not everybody. I love Ryan Rishaug. By the way, I think Ryan Rishaug is outstanding. He is not part of this, but there's a few others that they are worse than Eric Francis in the way that they cover their team, and it's they're so fanboy about it. I find it's embarrassing the way that they talk about the Oilers. It's any little hit or any little missed call, they cry and complain and bitch and moan, and it's oh my God, look at the goal that Connor McDavid scored. Who cares? You lost. Cover your team. It's just so it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. You would expect this from high school people, but these are professional reporters. Stop it. Oh. Thank you, Heidi. I feel better now.
All right. I'll mention a couple things. I do think that they've because of how poorly the team's been run and how the team and the franchise and the city and all that has been basically fodder for jokes for the rest of the league in Canada. I think they do have a little bit of us against the world mentality, and I do think that I'm not going to say I disagree with you, Kev, because I don't, but I do think that they definitely have that for sure.
Before we move on, anyone else have a response to that? Okay. Let's get to the Canucks here. Sean and Chris, what were your takeaways from this week? We had the 9-2 loss in Tampa Bay, the 5-1 loss in Florida, and then the win in Buffalo, 6-3. The word confidence came to mind this week in Canuck land. Did this week affect your confidence in any way, or was just this part of the ups and downs of the season?
This is just part of the ups and downs of the season, the ups and downs of building a team that's going to hopefully be a contender in 1, 2, 3 years. It's a younger team, especially the star players. And I think they got a little shell shocked with Tampa, and it took them a game to kind of recover from that. But once they went into Buffalo and played a really good game, they, for the first 2 periods, went back and forth with Buffalo, but they took over in the third and were able to get a win, and a very much needed win. And they were led by the top players. Pettersson had a good game. Besser played fantastic. The Horvat line's still looking good. I do think it's just ups and downs of the season, and as frustrating and disheartening as those 2 games in Florida were, I really liked their response yesterday versus Buffalo.
Yeah, that there's going to be a return back to earth after that, that significant win streak. But at the same time, I don't think anyone was prepared for that shellacking that we got. So, yeah, for the most part, I echo Sean's statements because, I watched the same game. I feel the same way. It's good to see that they got their mojo back in Buffalo, and hopefully that continues into Minnesota this afternoon.
Right, and they play Winnipeg on Tuesday as well. Devin, Heidi, did you catch any Canuck action?
Yeah, kind of as I'm gonna just echo what has already been said. I think it matters more how you kind of respond to that type of situation. After the first shellacking there, it's okay, that sucks. We'll see how you guys play the next game. The fact that you got kind of shellacked sort of again, maybe not as bad. Sometimes I think teams on winning streaks and just need sometimes a little bit of a something to bring them back to reality. Maybe that's not the best way to have it, but and I caught watching a little bit of the game yesterday. I was impressed to see and happy to see that they responded well. I know it's Buffalo, and Buffalo might not be the best team right now, but I still think they played well, and good for you guys.
Aw, that's nice and stuff.
Have you looked at the standings in the Pacific?
It's fun.
Yeah.
Devin?
Yeah, I watched a bit of the Tampa game. You guys are I always say that. The Canucks were in it until midway through the second period, and then the wheels fell off and all hell broke loose. And it is the ebbs and flows and the whole win streak, coming back down to earth. But you got to have those blowouts every once in a while to keep your head even keeled. And I remember last year or 2 years ago, Pittsburgh came into the Saddle Dome and laid a massive number against us. I think it was 7-2 or 7-1. Where it was last year when James Neal scored. And that kind of kickstarted our last little bit of or our last part of the season. So it looking at the Western Conference or the Pacific Division, it's really exciting, and I don't think anybody really pegged the Pacific to be as close as they are right now, which is making a lot of fun.
Yeah, the Flames, as of this recording, are in first place. Just on a quick side note, before we dig into dig in here, I think Devin will relate this, but it feels like the Tampa Bay Lightning are a little bit like this. The Imperial March that is coming up. They've won 10 straight games, and they feel like they're coming back to the Tampa Bay Lightning ways. So, in terms of the Eastern Conference, I would be very careful about the Tampa Bay Lightning for sure. And with that skill, they looked pretty damn good, in my opinion. That's, as bad as the Canucks looked, the Tampa Bay looked quite incredible. So, yeah. But I think one of the other takeaways that I came away with in terms of in Vancouver, and we chatted a little bit about this in December, but I think as the trade deadline comes forward here, I think one of the areas that I do think the Canucks need to improve on is, I was saying that it would be nice to get a top 4 defenseman, but I do think the depth of defense is becoming a little bit of an issue here. We'll get to Quinn Hughes in a moment, but Jordy Ben has struggled, and I think from Travis Green's eyes has struggled. Troy Stecher, I think from Sean's eyes, has struggled. But he fits on the right side. And Fantenberg has been Oscar Fantenberg, which is a 5'6" defenseman. Are there any particular defensemen that you think the Canucks should look at as we head to the trade deadline?
In terms of Stecher, the way that Jim Benning made comments in the summer about wanting a big, strong defense, and the way that they want to play. They've got Quinn Hughes, who's just a game changer. Alex Edler plays physical. Chris Tane's a warrior. Tyler Myers is Tyler Myers. He looks great at times, looks horrible at others. And Ben, when he's on, looks great. Vandenberg's looked great. Stetcher's just... he's a solid defenseman, but I don't know what he specifically brings that separates him out from any of the other 6 defensemen that are on the Canucks right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a move and move like a Stecher out to bring in a bigger defenseman who's just as good at being a smart puck mover. I haven't really looked at who the Canucks could potentially get, but I do think that is something that they're probably looking at, especially if they can use Stecher and then maybe potentially move out one of their extra higher priced forwards to make a move.
I'm in agreement with that. I'm just going to say that I'm surprised that Sean didn't bring up Rafferty, because I was assuming that was his first point was going to be that.
I think it's better to keep Rafferty in the AHL all season this year. Maybe bring him up for a couple of games. Let him see what playoff chase hockey looks like, because he played a couple of games last year, but they were throwaway games at the end of the season. But I think it's better off to give him a full season down in the AHL and let him work out the kinks of learning how to play good defensive hockey down there.
And also to, I guess, not mess up his mojo of his amazing AHL season thus far.
Yeah. I think he's a next season addition to the Canucks blue line if he it would be the earliest.
Yeah. And just to get back to the original question, I'm for the most part in agreement with Sean. It feels like if there is a defenseman that's going to get moved, it's probably going to be Stecher, maybe Ben, but most likely Stecher. So I agree that it's probably our most dire need right now, especially if we want to actually try and secure a playoff spot, since we're definitely in the hunt at this point of the season. So,
I would say the most dire need is adding another top six forward.
You still think that that's your biggest need?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really, top six that includes Louis Eriksson.
Well,
as good as he's looked, he's not what you need, and
he's only that high up in the lineup because of the Levo injury, though.
Yeah, but Levo's not coming back for any time soon here. We don't know when Ferland's coming back. We don't know when Sutter's coming back. They need. Ideally, I would be targeting a good and try and find another Tanner Pearson. Try and find another JT Miller type player, not like that level, because both of them are playing great. But if you can find someone who can come in, play well with Bo Horvat, be physical, be defensively responsible, and put up a better and at a cheaper, at a decent rate where you're not having to, and they can skate better than Louis Eriksson, you're making your team better than adding a bottom pair defenseman. Like as I said,
think there's a lot of people.
I would love to.
Sorry, I'm jumping in. I think there's a lot of teams that would look for that, though. That I guess my question is, are you guys willing to potentially trade a piece of your future to make yourself better for today, or are you guys willing to go through this season and then see what happens next year, kind of thing, right? Because in my mind, I don't think you guys are there yet. I don't think you guys are a deadline acquisition away from making a run. So, all these things would be nice, but is that the smartest move?
No, and then that's where I was going as well. This is a season where if they make the playoffs, that's great. If not, then they still keep their first round pick for this year, and they can add more to the future. Selling the future and selling off a player like a Tyler Madden or a Nils Hoglander is not going to help build confidence in the fan base, and as well as really help this team long term become the team that I think a lot of people think they can be. But I'd be totally fine with them standing pat. Or just get creative and find a way to do another sort of Eric Goodbranson for Tanner Pearson trade. Find someone who's slightly overpaid and get rid of 1 year overpaid players for him, and see what you can do. Find someone who wants a more skilled forward and move Sven Berchi for, say, a slightly quote unquote lesser skilled player who plays the way that Travis Green wants to play. That's the move that they should be making.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if let's put it this way: if Jim Benning trades Nils Hoglander, the next thing that he needs to do is book a flight out of Vancouver immediately, because he will never be allowed to live even remotely in British Columbia if he trades Nils Hoglander at this particular point in time. Forget it. He would be done if he traded Nils Hoglander. And I think even if it got the Canucks a cup, I think that this fan base would not forgive Jim Benning for trading Nils Hoglander at this particular point in time.
Well, then that's the fan base's issue, not that. Because if you get a cup, the GM and coach and the players of the next Canadian team to win a cup are going to be gods, legends in that city.
Yep.
Yeah, while I see that, I think that there's an opportunity. I think there's maybe an opportunity to win 2 cups, though. If you imagine winning 2 cups where you are in your godness, anyway, but I mean, the point is, at this point in time, Hoglander's not a guy that you trade at this particular point in time if you're the Canucks anyway. But I do think, maybe it's the structure, maybe it's something, but I do think, as much as the top 6 forwards need work, and of course, part of that is Chris is right. Eriksson is playing in a spot that probably Levo would normally play. I just feel like I'm not sure if it's the structure, the pairing, the entire concept of the Canucks defense. It doesn't seem, especially against faster teams, they don't seem to match up very well.
Just as a general counter to what John was saying about having to go for forward as opposed to defense, with both Höglander and Podkolzin likely coming up the next year or two, I don't necessarily want to spend money on a top six forward when those two guys are probably going to be gunning for those spots in a year or two. So that's why I was more so prioritizing defense. But I'll let you get back to your question that you're working towards.
No, and that again, that's exactly the issue that the Canucks are in. They've got throw in Tyler Madden too, Cole Lind. They've got 3-4 really good forward prospects coming up through the ranks that are going to need spots, but they're not going to necessarily. They're not guarantees yet. And and that's why I said you got to get creative. You got to find a way to make another good Branson for Pearson trade, another. Just move out one of your players for another, like a hockey trade, not trade prospects or anything, but make a hockey trade and then make those players work for it, because it's worked for Gaudette. Gaudette worked his way onto the team, and now he's a mainstay on that third line, which is a fantastic third line.
Yep, that might be a hot take, but one of the better third lines in the league for sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
Do you guys have a hockey trade be made? I mean, you said Sven Baertschi. He's not even on your team right now. You know, like he's right. He's still down in the AHL, correct?
Yeah.
So making a hockey trade, you're going to be standing exactly where you are right now. I don't think making a hockey trade is the smartest move. I think that if Benning does anything, he needs to turn off his phone and just let everything ride. Like, do not take any calls, because the only time that you're going to make yourself better is if you are going to be trading a draft pick or a prospect. You're not going to be making yourself better if you're doing a hockey trade at this point.
The reason I say hockey trade is like they made a hockey trade with Pittsburgh, and with Goodbranson for Pearson, they made themselves better. It's a little bit of shuffling deck chairs, but that's really all the Canucks should be doing at this point. Just like I said, they should be looking 2-3 years in advance right now and work on what this is going for. Like, build on this season, but don't sell. Don't sell the future. So. Like that's said. If either don't make a move or try and make a creative hockey move.
And I understand like why you're gunning for that comparison of the Pearson Goodbranson trade, but I'm not sure how repeatable that is, because like we hosed Pittsburgh on that trade. We definitely won that trade. I'm just not sure if we can repeat how good of a trade that was for us again.
It doesn't even have to be that good, but if you can find a way to say move Baertschi for a player with who makes similar money but one less year on the contract, that's a good move for the Canucks, no matter how that player plays this year. Get creative, and find a way to shuffle some cap around and open up cap for future years.
Okay. Sure. Now, but of course, we expect Benning to be creative, but in terms of Travis Green and the defensive structure of the Canucks, back to my question, I don't, especially against teams like Tampa Bay, teams like Dallas, some of the top end speedier teams, it doesn't seem that their structure matches up, and I don't know. Part of it, I think, is player, for sure, but I also wonder if it's tactic and strategy as well. And I'm not, but please understand, I'm not criticizing Travis Green and saying fire him, but I do think, I wonder if there's an adjustment to be made there in terms of how you play defense.
Oh, yeah, I think there definitely is.
So tweaking his assistant coaches, is that what we're trying to get at?
No, tweaking his strategy.
Yeah, or it doesn't matter if it's coaches or whatever. Yeah, I definitely think they need to tweak, and I think they are throughout the season. And and into next. Like this is Travis Green and Nolan Baumgartner's first foray into NHL coaching. And they're learning. This is the first season where they're expected to make moves and be a better team as opposed to just playing out the streak. Right? So I think they are learning on the job.
Yeah. Fair. I'm just that's the other part of that. So we do have some other moves. Is it moves? We'll get to that in a moment here too. I just checked Twitter. Thank you, Heidi. But I just that's where to me that's been the thing that I'm noticing defensively. I think I'm not a fan. We didn't see much of Myers and Vandenberg, but Myers and Vandenberg as a pair doesn't really. I'm not a big fan of it. Myers will be fair, be up and down. Jordy Ben has struggled. I think at least in Travis Green's eyes, and I do think better defensive depth in a playoff run helps. In a playoff opportunity can help you. That's why I'm thinking you don't have to make. Yeah, that's where if I'm targeting, that's where I go after. And sure, I think a top six forward would be nice too. I mean, who wouldn't want that? But yeah, we'll see what they do. Before we get to Quinn Hughes, we do have we'll just comment on this now. This is according to Greg Wyshynski. The NHL Department of Player Safety said there will be no discipline for Matthew Tkachuk after controversial hits on Zach Kassian. Their statements, I'm just pulling up here. Kassian will have a hearing. The hearing will be Monday, so nothing new there. I just another tweet from Greg Wyshynski, so nothing too different to what we've talked about, I guess, there. But Quinn Hughes won the last man in. He will be going to the All-Star game with Jacob Markstrom and Mr. Pettersson. I don't know what else there is to say. Maybe I'll ask this. How popular is Quinn Hughes in Canuck land? Yeah, I feel like there's more love for Quinn Hughes than I've seen for a lot of other, even more than Pettersson in some ways. Maybe I'm missing this, but he's come in. I mean, he came in with a lot of fanfare, but in terms of the fan base, it feels like there's been a love relationship for Huggy.
We have never had a defenseman that is this good at being this offensive at this point in his career ever in the history of the Canucks franchise. I just wanted to jump in and get on that before Sean said something similar.
Yeah, Chris is right. That's one of the big things about why Hughes is so popular with Canucks fans is that we've had really good centers before. We've had Henrik Sedin. We've had really good forwards before, Pavel Bure, Marcus Naslund, but we've never had a absolute ridiculously game-changing defenseman like Quinn Hughes. And if you watch every game he walks the line, turns around, button hooks at the blue line, walks the blue line, and uses his skating and edge work to create plays and create offense out of nothing. And it's mind-boggling. And he's a rookie. That's why he's got so much fanfare with Canucks fans.
Because we've seen other teams have their Erik Karlssons and other comparables in that elk. We've never had that before. So now that we finally do, we are beyond stoked.
There feels to his personality, I think, is endearing to Canuck fans as well. Just, I mean, he doesn't come across as a very cocky. He's not Rass and Miss Anderson in the sense that he's going to smack talk anybody. But there's something about his personality that I think also suits Canucks Nation as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like that humble, down-to-earth sort of good guy, just in the same way that we all love Bo Horvat for also being similar in that sort of personality.
He's got a quiet confidence to him, and I think he's just one of those guys. It's just his play more than anything else. And then he just with Yeah, I think it's more to his play than anything else. But yeah, he has a quiet confidence that I think just comforts fans.
Yeah, he's certainly, I think, going to be a guy. I think we talked about this with Derek Neumeyer. We haven't seen, like, the crop of defensemen that have come up, Makar, Hughes, others. I think we're in a really Heiskanen. I mean, Dahlin, even though Derek thinks that Dahlin's a little bit of a lower level maybe than the other ones. We're in a really exciting time for defensemen in the league, and it's nice to watch Quinn Hughes on a daily basis and see where he's going to be, because it is where he's going to end up. I think is going to be quite fascinating in my mind.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just if you haven't isolated on Quinn Hughes during a shift or two, I recommend doing it. Just especially in the offensive zone, his skating and edge work to create space for himself and space for his teammates. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's absolutely fun to watch.
He does defensively what, in the same way that Petey wowed us with his offensive skills, Quinn is doing it the same way with how he skates with the puck.
Yep. It's something to watch for sure. Is there any other topics that we did not get to that you wanted to talk about this week?
No, I think we're good.
I'm satisfied as a Canucks fan.
Heidi, Devin?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think we hit all the major points so far.
All right. Okay. I can't think of anything else. I mean, yes, Connor McDavid scored a nice goal. Yay. Woo. That's
McDavid does McDavid things.
Yes, McDavid doing McDavid things. Yeah, so we'll wrap it here, I think, on this cold Sunday. I do have to give a shout out. Tyler was not able to make it because of the snow. He's not able wasn't able to make it, but out doing work. So again, we'll just remind everyone this is what's going on.
Don't remember. Call Mr. Plow. That's my name. That name again is Mr. Plow.
So that's what he's doing. Also, I do want to quickly give a quick shout out. Chris and I have probably been following this a little bit more, but our thoughts today are a little bit with the victims of Flight 752. And if you are in Edmonton and listening to the podcast, or anywhere in Canada, there is a GoFundMe for many of those victims that is out there. I'm not comparing this to Humboldt in the sense, but as the hockey community did stand behind the Humboldt community and gave money. If you do have some there, it's on Bashir Muhammad's Twitter. If you follow him, I'm not trying to get political here, but throw some support to them as well. It's because we're several Canadians, so just thinking of them today before we sign off for our Twitters on there. But if follow Bashir, BASHIRMOHAMED, his Twitter. He has been tweeting out the GoFundMe. If you have a few bucks to toss their way, then that feels fine. That's I just do want to give a mention to them today, and it's been a very tragic week for them, for sure. But how do we follow everyone?
I am Beardy Canuck 03 on Twitter.
I am Heidi Maysballs on Twitter and all over the internet.
All over the internet.
I am at Schneids on all forms of social media.
And I am at GordHow09 on Twitter and Homesmith18 on Instagram.
Right. And I am KEVOLE on Twitter and Instagram, and Podcast Hockey as well. Hope you're all safe wherever you are listening. And we do have some things coming up, but we'll announce soon. But we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Well, John Q. Driveway has our number. Now we play the waiting game. Waiting game sucks. Let's play Hungry Hippo.